and welcome to Growing People. I'm John Losey, and today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine and CEO of Blue Microphones, John Maier. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit a few weeks ago, and you shared a little bit about the journey that you're on right now, and I want to help everybody else catch up. And I want to hear a little bit about the path you took to the chair you're sitting in there at Blue Microphone. So where did you start and how'd you go?
Yeah. The funny thing is I started as a musician, so a passion for music and everything that revolved around music. So that's really where the whole thing started. And from that kind of grew into an interest in the products around music making. So for me, working in music stores as I was playing in bands and seeing all these new interesting products coming in, it really got me interested in how's that process work? How do you come up with a product idea? How do you actually create the design? How do you manufacture it? And then go out and tell the world about it. So the marketing and sales side of it. So that really
it sounds like for like a lot of people, it started off as a way to pay for your music habit. Getting involved in the business part of it, but then it turned into something much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a fun, I think a lot of musicians have that same experience where they're teaching lessons, they're working in a music store, they're doing the things that they need to do to make a living, but still be able to play music and be involved in music. So I was, going down that same path. But for me, what was interesting is I really got to get a passion for the products themselves. And that's really where the sort of two paths sort of diverged a little bit, in the sense that the music performance part of it was doing what it was doing, but the product part of it was really starting to take off. So the sort of long story short is that from there, I started to work my way through the channel. So from working in retail, I started to become a sales rep on the road, visiting retail stores and selling them the product. And then from there, my ultimate goal was to get to the manufacturing side of the business, and that's what I've done probably for the last more than a decade, is actually be on the manufacturing side where all that magic happens, and that's really what led me to the Blue position.
So some of the projects that you worked on, or some of the companies, tell me some of the products that you guys produced. What are some of the things that have come out of your efforts?
Yeah. The company started as a pro recording microphone company. So you'll still see products we sell today, like the Bottle, which is a $10,000 recording system out in the market. But about mid-2000s, this is the era when GarageBand was being put on every Mac that they sold. We happened on an idea to get a sort of simple, easy way, great sounding way to get audio into a laptop, and that was the Snowball microphone. Just a inexpensive plug and play, but great quality, great design, and that kind of blew the doors open on that whole market for us. And we really spent a lot of time over the last 10 years looking at who is that customer, what are the other things that we can do for that customer, and so now you'll see things like Yeti is probably our most popular product, and it's a desktop microphone that has a very versatile feature set. But we make things from handheld live mics to desktop mics to more mobile mics, and then we still do all the recording mics as well.
Well, you guys just came out with a pretty excellent headphone system, didn't you?
Yeah. So the most recent thing is over the last couple of years, we sort of stayed on the sidelines on the headphone business for a long time. A lot going on there, very crowded. But we thought there's something there for us, and we just got to kind of figure out what it is. From a technology standpoint, it's the same basic technology as a microphone. It's just the audio is going in a different direction. But that's not a reason to put out a headphone with the myriad of other headphones that are out there. But we did kind of come up with an idea about 4 or 5 years ago of how can we make the experience the way people listen today, which is on mobile devices, a much better experience. And so we've created a product that we've taken an audiophile power amp and merged it with the headphone. That first product was MoFi, and now we have a whole line of product both on the sort of audiophile side as well as the consumer side. So we just introduced 3 more headphones at this past CES show. So yeah, that's kind of the newest part. In fact, You introduced me as from Blue Microphones, and that's true, but we're slowly going to transition to just Blue. And in fact, if you go to our website now, it's bluedesigns.com, not Blue Mic anymore, because we're doing more than just microphones. So.
That's great. And as somebody who can appreciate, from a musician side, it's about fidelity to the sound. And I've always been a believer that the quality of the sound is really important, whether you're doing music or you're doing recording, films, things like that. But you guys hit with the headphone piece. Really, I can have the best recording, but if I don't have really good headphones to listen to it or a good speaker system, you lose it. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, and it's definitely something that we care a lot about too.
So you shared with me that you just went back to school to get your MBA degree. And what I'm curious about is a lot of people see an MBA as a first step or a step in the path towards executive leadership and towards the CEO seat. Now, you already got that seat. Why in the heck did you go back to school?
Yeah, right. It's a great question. And actually, I didn't know this about myself until I went back and got my bachelor's. But I really, really enjoy it. I really enjoy. I've always been, sort of a, always curious guy about how things work and learning new stuff. And I think that's what keeps life interesting. But I went back to get my bachelor's in the mid 2000s, and sort of surprised myself that how much fun I had doing it. It was really a personal goal. To kind of go backwards a little bit, I went to school for a couple of years at Illinois State, my hometown, and basically after 2 years decided that it wasn't for me. I was, had a great music teacher, and he was teaching me timpani and orchestral music, and I was teaching him how to play drum set. And I thought, well, I don't want to play timpani. I want to play drum set. So I basically quit school and went on the road, and that's what kind of led me to the career that I have. So I don't need the degree for my career. It's my experience and talents that have gotten me here, and some good luck and some hard work. But so I went back and got the bachelor's kind of as a sort of to prove to myself that I could do it, and to show my kids and to kind of check that box. I had so much fun. I thought, I want to go back and do the master's thing. So fast forward to today, Cal Lutheran started their executive MBA program, and it kind of got me thinking again. And for me, definitely it's not a part of my career path per se. I don't need it for the job that I have. But I thought, one, I really enjoy it, really want to do it. Second is there are things that I'm learning and that I want to learn to make me a better CEO and a better leader. In fact, I've been at Blue almost 7 years now, and we've grown, 10, 15 fold. We were a very small company doing a couple of million in sales the year before I got here. And, in our industry, we're starting to become a fairly big brand and big name. And so a lot more challenges, right? There's a lot more people. There's more layers in the company. We have a whole project management layer we've never had before. And, one of the courses in the MBA program is project management, which I'm pretty interested in, kind of getting it from their perspective. I don't need to be a project manager. I don't need to learn it inside and out and be an expert at it, but I'd like to have some background. So, and then the third reason is for some things I want to do down the road. I'm really excited to share with people what we've been able to do at Blue and at some companies I've been at prior, and excited to kind of go help others do that. And I think the MBA will help me not only open some doors, but give me some background and some experience that I don't have in certain areas, because I'm strong in some and weak in others. So, if I were to define it for people, I'd say that my market and product and sales chops are strong. My finance, operations, logistics chops are weak. So it's nice for me to kind of push myself into some of those areas and learn a little bit more about it.
So how does this, you said something really interesting in that your experience brought you to where you're at, and now you're going back to school. And I wonder how many, because most people do it the other way, where they get highly educated and then their experience has to catch up with their education. Yeah. How is that relating for you? And is your experience interacting well with the education. Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be frustrating if it was a poor program or if you were too impatient. It definitely could be a frustrating thing. I think that people who are there's need for book smarts, and being book smart in certain things is important, but it's not nearly as important as being street smart and having experience. So I was pleasantly surprised. I've already, into the program, into a couple of terms and several classes, and it's really been a lot of fun, and it's a good group. It's a cohort program, so there's 20 of us through the entire program, and yeah, there are a few times when I see that we're going to basically be learning something that isn't real, that isn't exactly what happens in the real world, but I get sort of the point. It's like giving people some basics. But what your question reminds me of too is I really drives me nuts when I see a company say that a bachelor's degree is a requirement, because to me, yeah, if you're going to be an engineer, you probably need an education. If you're going to be an accountant, you probably need an education. But ultimately, I'd much rather have people who have experience and knowledge of how things work in the real world and interrelationships, all that stuff. So I don't put those requirements on any of our positions. And in fact, I can tell you I've said no to MBAs and yes to people who don't have a degree for the same position because they were the better person for the job. So I'm one of those kind of interesting guys in that I love the learning process, and I'm excited to get my MBA. At the same time, I don't think there's anything magical about having a degree. It's really you and your talents and your experience and what you bring to it that matters. So
yeah, the way that I process it is that it's kind of a race between your experience and the education, or like the actions, the real life actions and the theories that they are built on. And you can have great experience that's enhanced by the theories or the education that you get. And you can have great education that can only be enhanced by living into it. Yeah. So I think that you're hitting on something where it needs to be both. And you can either start off with great experience or you can start off with great education. And then when I say education, it's not just a degree.
Right.
But it's both of those things, and making sure that as you grow and as you progress professionally, you're building up that experience, but also building up on top of the theories and the why, so that you can do things on purpose.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where when I hear you talk, that's where I go.
Yeah.
Want to ask you a couple of questions about leadership. So, John, you've been in leadership for a while now, and there's probably people listening who are curious about the leadership aspect of it. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to share maybe 2 or 3 things that you think would help somebody who wants to grow into leadership.
I mean, obviously it's a big question, and you could spend hours on it, and people have written books on it, obviously, but
a few million books.
Yeah. I mean, for me, first of all, there's nothing like learning the hard way and failing and getting up in front of people and figuring out what works and what doesn't. So number one, people shouldn't be afraid of that. They shouldn't be afraid of failing. They shouldn't be afraid of screwing up in front of your team. It's really how you deal with it. It's how you learn from the mistakes. It's how you control and understand your emotions and your ego and how you're going to react to things. I would say the next thing for me is it's such a thing about people and relationships with people and understanding, and being empathetic. I'd say my theme word that I use throughout my entire career is empathy. And sometimes it gets me in trouble because I worry a little too much sometimes about how the other person's, understanding something or reacting to something. But I think empathy is huge because it really gets you to stop for a minute, kind of take it from somebody else's perspective, and then get back in your shoes and decide how you're going to deal with something. So yeah, to me, it really is a people thing. The book stuff and learning, all these techniques, it really comes down to interacting with people and having a high emotional intelligence, being able to listen well, and interact well is key. I've had, early on in my leadership career, I had one of those situations where I was young. I was put in charge of a department at a company, and things got a little dicey, and I had to kind of go in and control it, and I didn't handle it very well, and it was I'll never forget it, and it was an amazing learning experience, and it sort of gave me my some of my little rules that I use now about how to interact with people. So that's a key part of it, I think.
Okay, so number two relates back to number one. What I heard is that advice that you have is, number one, don't be afraid of those hard lessons. Failure isn't fatal, especially if it teaches you something. And then the second one, and this is one I've heard, I've interviewed some other CEOs and VPs and even frontline leaders, and it comes back to empathy and listening. I like what you said. It's a people thing.
Yeah.
So it was your advice is be a learner and focus on the people. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yep, absolutely. And I think as you get into a higher level role, that's been something I've learned more recently in my leadership role here is, as a CEO or leader of any organization, it's kind of broken down into your sort of a couple of key things. One of them is chief strategy officer, right? So you're the vision, you're the one basically trying to and it's not that you have to do it all on your own, but you're using your team and your inputs to come up with what's the right thing for the company. Second is chief sales officer, which it works well for me because that's where I come from, and it's sort of like being the sort of advocate and evangelist for the company. But the third one, and probably the most important, is building a great team. It's surrounding yourself with the team and the people that are going to be able to execute on that vision and that strategy. And it's sort of only in hindsight that I've understood that, and very proud of the team that we've been able to build here. And it's definitely changed our fortunes as we've built and grown the team and sort of upped our game each go around. So.
Well, John, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me today. I look forward to future conversations. And once again, John Maier, CEO of Blue. And thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks a lot, John. Appreciate it.